Welcome to YMI Talking, a podcast where the guests are so good, you'll wonder why the host is even talking. In each episode, you will hear one of the leaders of the Lehigh Valley's vibrant business hub. They will tell you the keys to their success, the mistakes they've made, and what they have in store for the future. Here is the host of YMI Talking, from YMI Insurance, Jimmy Honachik.
Hey. Thank you for coming back for another episode of Why Am I Talking? This one is going to be fantastic. I'm not a fortune teller, but I am confident in that statement. We have today Matt Strunk, who is, I guess I would call him a serial entrepreneur. He has started numerous businesses, sold several businesses, has had lots of success, and I'm going to just sit here and try to sponge that all in to make myself a better businessman. So I want to say thank you, Matt, for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to diving into this.
Yeah, man. No, I'm excited to dive in as well. I love the name of the podcast, by the way. When you came up with that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's good, but...
Thank you. Hey, why don't we go into that? So you and I go back. We met each other from the company I know you from, which is Strunk Media Group. And so that is an advertising firm based out in Kutztown. Tell me how that came to be, because that's not your first business, and I don't know that you had advertising experience going into that. So I'm really curious, what was the genesis of that?
Man, yeah, I think to probably best articulate that, I have to go back to like the first.
Let's go to the very beginning. Yeah, let's start there.
So I remember out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, not uncommon, but I think the one thing I did know is that I did not want to work. So I was like, all right, I don't really want to work. So how do I not do that? And then I stumbled upon, back then, they still do it, but all those get rich quick scheme things that you see,
Keep trying, man.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is fake. Let me check it out. I got down a rabbit hole of drop shipping as like a get rich scheme. It's so easy. You build a website, you get a product, people buy it, someone else ships it, you get rich, you don't work,
Okay. So just so I'm clear, you set up a storefront on the internet, no real inventory, and try to build web traffic to come to you, I guess?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I built the site. It was for airsoft guns. Airsoft Guns Unlimited. Yeah. Yep. And, thought it was the best idea ever. Built the e-commerce site, ready to fly, had the drop shipper set up, and nothing happened. Because I didn't really think this through, at 18 years old, but you need to get people to the site first,
Yes.
That's where I was like, oh, how do I do that? That's what got me into the marketing side of things. So I started going down the SEO rabbit hole of like, how can I, optimize my site, get the traffic, get rich, don't work. That rich quick, don't work was the idea.
Yeah.
And did all this work like for 6 months. I'm doing all this work for SEO and it's not working. So now I'm like, well, I need to actually get a real job because I'm super broke. So I basically deemed it as a failure and went on and actually got a job at a car dealership, just selling cars basically. But funny story is a few months later, I had circled back into my email that I had associated with the business, and I had like $20,000 in the PayPal account.
The drop ship business.
Yeah, because it started to work.
Wow.
SEO works. It just takes some time. So I didn't give it enough time, and then when it started to work, people were placing orders, and guess who was not processing the order?
You.
This guy. Yeah, so I had a lot of not happy customers. I had like all these emails saying like, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to find you, better business. And I'm like, I blew this thing up. I refunded all the money, shut it down. And I was like, I'm done with business stuff, man. I clearly don't know what's going on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of got down the rabbit hole of digital marketing, SEO, that kind of stuff was how do I get people to get to the sites I'm building? And then on the other side of the coin was working at the car dealership, got me that experience. And I kind of fused the two when we started the agency.
Yeah. All right. So there are a couple paths I want to go down now that you've said all of that. The first is I wasn't even going to talk advertising for some reason. I think of you as the serial entrepreneur, but then that's right. You have so much experience in that world. We're definitely going to talk digital marketing. The second is I'm sure your car industry experience probably influenced your sales and your thoughts towards that. So I want to hit on that. And then third is, yeah, obviously like the serial entrepreneur. That's clearly been sort of a theme in your life. So why don't we start? Let's start with the entrepreneur. So you've done that first business. You've now gone to the car industry.
Yep.
What takes you out of working for someone and starting Strunk Media Group?
So I started a second e-commerce business that worked a little bit after the airsoft gun one. I learned from my mistakes.
Yes.
And I went to the owner of the dealership to pitch to him because back then they weren't doing anything with digital marketing.
When are
and
we
I'm
in
like,
time?
Hey, this is back in like 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. And pitched the idea. I'm like, hey, we can be doing this, SEO, do that, this, drive this traffic, get ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
That didn't happen at the time. So it was like, oh, sell cars. But fast forward a little bit further, and I had to join the military reserves. So I was gone for a few months. And when I came back from that, the GM at the store and the vice president there said, you know what, you were right. We're starting to hear more about this digital marketing thing. We want to give you a shot. So he basically moved me into what we called an internet manager, internet director role at the dealership, which was newer concept back then. And it was time to start actually doing digital marketing, and that's how I started to apply it in the automotive space. And that's where I really learned a lot, because now I'm working with real budgets. I'm working with like a real, not that the other businesses weren't real, but a real business that's doing real money with real people. And that's really where I kind of honed the skills, if you would. And then that's when it came to me. And I was like, dude, these dealerships are so far behind, most of them, that I can take this model, break it out, and then do like a fractional marketing person for all these dealerships. It'll be cheaper for each of them and more, more advantageous for myself. And then that's basically an agency model. And that's how we did that.
And what's unique, I think, is you guys found a niche, it sounds like, right? You built off a niche, and we talk about that in our world all the time, and I think everyone does. The idea of a niche, it makes you sort of the authority for that group. Did you find that worked well in the automotive digital advertising space?
100%. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because, what ended up happening is by the time I started the agency, I had almost 8 years of automotive experience. I moved into the internet role. I actually moved into more of a sales management role. So I knew that business, but I also knew digital marketing. So you kind of fuse those two skill sets together, makes for a compelling value proposition for dealer customers and things like that. Because it's like, I actually been there. I understand the business part of it. So it's definitely helps, I'd say. And it also helps you with staying focused, But,
Yeah. How was that when the dealership took you on, right? So no one is doing that at this point in time. It's a kind of scary investment for them, I'm sure. What was that like? Did they just say, here's our checkbook, go ahead and do whatever you want? Or was there a lot more restraint on it?
There were some guardrails, I'd say. It started with like, hey, you're going to be managing the website and, maybe some social media, things like that. And then it was kind of like, all right, we should be doing Google advertising. Like, let's do that with an X budget. And it's like, oh, that's working. Let's grow that budget. And now, that's working. All right. And then you kind of start getting the rails off a little bit. You get your training wheels off. You go, cool. This guy kind of seems like he knows what he's doing now. So now we can give him more of an open budget of like, all right, figure it out and make us get lots of traffic and sell lots of cars.
Digital is good for that, in the sense that I feel like it's hard to track marketing dollars from an investment point of view usually. But digital, correct me if I'm wrong, you have pretty good idea of, I spent X, I'm getting Y return. Do you find that?
Definitely. 100%. Yeah. Now the landscape's changing now because of all the new privacy stuff going out, and with iOS changes with privacy, and that's the stuff that Facebook's been complaining about with kind of targeting. And Google sunsetting Universal Analytics, moving into GA4, coming in, I think July 1st is the hard deadline that they have to switch over. So it's changing, and you can still do it, but now it's even more evolved. Now you have to start talking about CDPs and DMPs, things like that, which are basically management platforms of data, where you as the customer, you as the advertiser, need to start storing your own data of your customers to be able to leverage and activate, as opposed to letting Google or Facebook do it for you, like you used to be able to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said DMP. What is that? What does that mean?
Data management platform.
Oh, okay. And that's basically, I'm keeping my customers' data on my site, and Facebook, Google,
Yeah.
you can't access that?
Pretty much, yeah, because it all comes down to like first party data versus like third party data, right? So say Google collects information on Susan, and then we say, hey, Google, we want to use that information to advertise to Susan. Well, we are now leveraging third party data because Susan never gave us that information, right? But if Susan comes to our site, Susan interacts with us, and we collect Susan's information, that's first party data. We own that data. We can activate it. And then basically we're sending that anonymous data to Google to advertise to Susan. So it's kind of changing the roles, if you would. And that's really where it's going. And it's everything, all these different indicators of a human, you know, what they do on your website, what are they doing on your social media channels, what vehicles do they own in the case of automotive? When's the last time they've done service? You know, are there multiple cars in the household? How many people live in the household? Okay, so there's multiple cars, but is it Jimmy or is it his wife? Like who is it, you know? And trying to get all those data points, and you have a database of collecting all these relationships, and then you can leverage that to start making some pretty intelligent decisions with your marketing.
So does someone somewhere out there know Jimmy is a father of 3 and has 2 vehicles and drives maybe a little too aggressively for an insurance agent?
Yeah, probably all of that. Yeah, I would say so. And if they didn't, they do now because it's going to be online.
And I mean, legislature is not probably your forte, but like, do you see that privacy concern taking center stage and becoming more and more of an issue? And would it possibly influence digital and make digital less of the ballast that it's been?
Yeah, I would say it's probably has been an issue that's been, you know, of topic. Part of the issue you have with, and not to get too political on things, but it's just a lack of knowledge and understanding, right? So when you have people trying to make decisions on this, they don't know what's going on with anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it matters what side of the aisle you're on. Everyone can agree on this point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of those like Mark Zuckerberg interviews or when they had him in Congress and whatnot, and they're just like, what is the Facebook? You know, and it's like, how do you make money then? You know, it's like advertise on it. It's like, there's a disconnect here. You know, we can't have a real conversation about it if we don't understand it. But to answer your question about how that changes probably digital marketing, it definitely changes it and could even make it less effective, except for the fact that companies like Facebook already has solved a lot of these problems. Google solves it. Like, there's ways around everything. So there's it just makes you do it differently, but I don't think the results will get worse. You know, I think it'll just probably improve. And then you have AI, which is a whole nother topic of how that's changing things too. You know, that's a whole.
Let's go.
You know,
did AI bring Bing and Microsoft back into the question? I feel like I joked no one used Bing, and now they've got ChatGPT, and I feel like Google's stronghold on search has been at least made human for once.
Yeah. Yep. Especially when they're kind of botched up the AI demo that they had. Because you know, the real players, I mean, you have Google, and really the biggest players is Google and then OpenAI for AI stuff, you know. But it certainly could. I mean, it changes a lot. I mean, there's all kinds of scary doomsday stuff with AI that you could kind of go down. But from a marketing perspective, I'll give you an example. I know someone who's working on tech where, let's say, Jimmy, you want to build a personal brand, right? You want to make content, you want to do your blog, you want to do social. Like, it's a lot of content you have to drive and create.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the AI will find all of these articles you've already written, find these podcasts, find videos of you, and it feeds it into an AI engine to train it about Jimmy, how he speaks, his positioning on things, the fact that he has 3 children, he drives too fast for an insurance agent, and it trains the AI about who Jimmy is as a human.
Yeah.
And then it can create content on behalf of Jimmy that it sounds pretty close to what Jimmy would say himself. And that makes it, from a content marketing perspective, a much easier for me to replicate your voice on your behalf and create content without you having to do it all. You know,
that is incredible. That is terrifying. That is something nobody wants. No one wants 2 Jimmys out there, certainly. But it's unbelievable that it's gotten to that point. And so I guess, how do you think about content going forward, right? Do you care as a consumer or as a digital marketer that it's becoming less human? And what do you think of that evolution personally?
I don't like it personally. You know, from a tech perspective, like my tech cap being a nerd, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You're like, I mean, and I think about it from a production perspective as an agency. Like I can make imagery, written word content in seconds now.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a graphic designer or a writer, like you got to start thinking about, man, how is AI going to impact what I'm doing kind of going down the road? But the thing that concerns me is you start to lose that humanity. I think AI starts to take over the voice to the point that it can learn what you want to hear. So it can test that fast where it's like, all right, Jimmy's not responding it to this way, but he does respond this way. Let's give him more of this kind of content. And you could really start manipulating things, I think, with AI because of that. And that's the part that starts to scare me. Misinformation, disinformation, and kind of leveraging that at scale could be not great.
Yeah, continue sort of the echo chambers that we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. An analogy I heard, and I wonder how true it will end up being, is when Thomas Edison created the phonograph, he could hide a woman behind anything, and there was a crowd in front of him, and she would sing, and then he would put the phonograph on, and she would stop singing, and no one could tell the difference between the two. And now they're the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard. Like, of course, we could tell the difference right away. And so I think at some point, the human psychology will evolve to be able to recognize it, but we're certainly not there yet, it doesn't feel.
Yeah, yep. And you're also, I think, going to see a lot of startups that are going to spin out, which is meant to detect AI usage.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, just so you know, this was probably written by AI.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay. Now I know.
So then let's go back to you being a serial entrepreneur. And you have all these evolutions. Like, is there, where are you in sort of your entrepreneur cycle? I know the answer, but I'm curious if you could tell the audience.
Yeah. I mean, so fortunately we were able to exit two companies fairly recently, like within the last year. So we're kind of on the back end of those things. Personally, there was kind of the business vacation stage of like just kind of getting yourself together, which, it's the break, if you would, the calm before the storm. But for me personally, I enjoy starting businesses. I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy that aspect of it a lot. So I think finding ways to get involved in more businesses, whether that's angel investing kind of stuff, whether that's starting more companies myself, things like that, are super interesting to me to at least explore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever seen like The Prophet, like Marcus Lemonis?
Yeah.
That at all? Yeah. Now he's like way elevated. Like I'm not saying this like any comparison, but like the idea there is kind of cool where you can kind of get into, small business even and help maybe with the skill sets you do have, or, things like that, I think would be at least rewarding.
Yeah. And do you think of that as sort of taking an equity stake in these and then coming in and saying, hey, you could do this, this, and this?
I think so. Yeah. I've even thought about like, when we started like the agency, for example, we had like the automotive experience, which is like very niche down experience, right? Like you have insurance experience, like more so than I would by far, right? So like partnering people that have that vertical expertise and that knowledge of a space and the knowledge of the problems that exist, and that I can kind of partner with and help out with maybe the tech component. Like we've built software and done all those types of things that we can kind of maybe bring some of that sophistication into it and build a really cool company out of it, or maybe change directions for a company, things like that. I think would be exciting to do.
That's really cool. Are you looking like your scope? When you think about your scope, are you going to look for businesses that are here locally, or do you see yourself kind of anywhere in the country?
Probably both. I mean, there's definitely, I like the hometown stuff. I think there's a community aspect to it that I enjoy a lot.
Yeah.
And just from, the agency business, being involved in the community, things like that, I do enjoy. And I also like challenging myself with like, brick and mortar stuff is a whole nother beast, like compared to everything digital, so it's, so I think it's probably a combination of both if it's the right opportunity.
Yeah. And so you are a local guy. Are you from the area originally, or did you move here through your life?
No, grew up in Kutztown.
Okay.
So mostly local, it's just Kutztown, grew up. And
the dealerships that you worked at, are those out in Kutztown area as well?
Yep.
You had a good story about, so you start Strunk Media Group, and there was an old dealership that you hoped or wanted to or saw yourself taking over as an office at one point.
Yeah.
What was that?
A funny story. And again, I don't know if you ever read like The Secret, you know, that manifesting, you just think what you want, you get it, that kind of stuff. I'm not like all the way there on it, but when we first started the business, in Kutztown, there was an old dealership called Mint Chevrolet.
Okay.
Like, so, and then there's a brewery there now, Saucony Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was 2 dealerships. They bought one, turned into a brewery, and the other one was just vacant. And I would drive by that on the way home all the time. And I was like, I'm going to buy that dealership one day. And I'm going to just, because it just, I should, you know, like that's going to be the market. We're going to grow so big. We're going to need the space. We're going to buy this. And then probably 3 years into the agency or so, we needed more space. And it had a for sale sign on it. So I called and I was like, oh God, there's probably way too much money for me to afford, but like, let's see. And it was sold. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. I thought my like dream was going to come to, you know, fruition. But it was sold. So started looking to lease a space. And then for some reason it was just, you know, sitting on the market still for like a while. Like we haven't made a commitment. And I was like, why is it still, I'm calling again. Yeah. He's like, yep, deal fell through. It's available again.
Get out.
So yeah. So then we went through that and we ended up buying the dealership, and that's where we moved the agency. And then COVID happened. So
and then everyone left.
And everyone left right away. Yeah. But we had it. We checked the box. We got the dealership. The problem was in my vision exercises, I didn't think through what we were doing in the building enough, I guess, because, you know, yeah.
But that's not the only thing you've manifested either, correct? I believe you were telling me something else.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's more about like staying focused than if you would, but one of the sales that we just did, did I tell you that one or no?
You started to a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one business that we sold, I was trying to I always try to like frame out where I want to go, goals, all that kind of stuff. Not revolutionary, but like visionize it the best I can, like really visualize it, vision board, that kind of stuff. So I did a press release of the sale where I was like, on this date, this year, we're going to sell the company for this much money to this company. And it was full press release ready for distribution. Yeah. And I hung it up above my computer and kept working. And we ended up selling to that same company. Wow. You know, this is like 2 years after the press release I wrote it. Yeah. We sold to that company. Not for as much money though. Again, I think I screwed that part up. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
But if I'm hearing you right, you're saying like maybe manifesting seems silly, but the idea of putting a goal out there and saying this is what I want and going for it kind of makes it happen, right? In a way.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I like to think it already has happened. I just got to go through the motions still, you know? Yeah. It's real. Because I think a lot of people I talk to, especially like, you know, people that are just starting out with business or doing whatever it is. And granted, I've failed a lot, you know? So it's not like it's just some immediate success type thing. Yeah. But I think a lot of times there's like a self-doubt that it will work already coming out the gate where it's like, it's probably won't fail because like statistically probably going to fail. And like, it's just, you're almost doomed right away if that makes sense, you know? But if you know it's true, then all you got to do is walk through the motions and go make it true. It's a little different, I guess, like a mindset shift.
No, that's great. We have that when we talk sales here, because we'll have sales guys go into a place and say, you know, like, I know they're not going to want it. And it's, now they don't. Like, you have to believe that they want it. And and then show them how they want it. And you're the reason that this is going to work. It's in your head. It's that mindset shift.
Exactly. Yep. It's real. It's possible. You just got to go do it, you know, put in the work.
And so that brings us back to that sales mindset, that ability to sell, or that ability to put that goal out there and reach for it and go for it. Do you think the dealership and your experience there has any impact on that?
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. You know, I go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, because I started off as a salesperson at the dealership, right? And which was super uncomfortable. Like, I remember when I first started, it was like, all right, well, go talk to them. And I'm like, what? Walk out. I'm like, hey, you want to buy something? Like, what's happening? And that didn't work well. Yeah. But over the years, you just from reading people, you know, and having those conversations, and it's like muscle memory in a way. You have to go through the motions. You got to have the reps in before you can actually get some traction with it. So that definitely helped with learning how to read people and just learning how to position what it is you're trying to achieve and sell, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah.
No, that's great. And so You said that in terms of the entrepreneurial cycle, you have sold your last two businesses, and we're looking to maybe do the angel investing. It's just really interesting to hear that story and how it all kind of ties together in your past and your background.
Yeah.
Do you see the experiences from the marketing, right? The drop shipping coming into play now? Because that was almost so long ago. And I know I struggle with this sort of thing where like, do my past experiences from 15 years ago still influence me? And so I'm just curious if like you still have lessons from those days and you're still using them.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard the saying like fail forward and, every just another step or whatever, but it's so true because like you just have to do those things and then you learn from those and you just try to refine and get better every day and just be better than you were yesterday. And customer service, even like just being able to, all those things are lessons from all these businesses and all these attempts have definitely paid off and I think impact me today. And even today, there's still stuff I'm messing up all over the damn place. It's just like I'm really good at that apparently, but but it's okay though. You gotta go through the motions and learn from it. So, but yeah, I say it would. And it's funny because the drop shipping thing at the time felt like a scam because I spent I think it was like $3,000 for this course, which was like all the money I had in the world at the time. And it was like a big failure, but then I kind of laugh now because I was like, I guess it kind of worked.
Right.
I guess it wasn't like, it was just like get rich quick in like 15 years or something,
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah,
And we're running low on time, so I've got time for maybe one more question. And this is something personal that I struggle with, and I'm curious your take on it. Like, I know you have young children, I have young children, and we both do a lot in the business and try to stay active in that. How do you find the time to balance the two of them, the family and the business? And how do you make that work?
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like I partly feel like I don't know if balance is. Everyone talks about like work-life balance, and I don't know that that's a real thing. Because balance implies that both sides are like evenly weighted, and it's balanced or something. Yeah. And I feel like for me, it's more like going all in on both. But then there's kind of seasons to it in a way, if that makes sense. So when you're doing business stuff, you're kind of all in on the business. When you're doing family stuff, be all in on the family. Disconnect from the business, disconnect from all that. And also, as silly as it sounds, make a purposeful schedule. Block it, time block in your calendar.
Yeah.
Like, this is daughter daddy time here. That's what I'm doing. Like, and if you're not scheduling it, it's not priority is kind of the thinking there. So it's like schedule the time. And when you're with the family, doing family things, when I'm with the kids, I just try to be as present as possible. Because that's the other thing, right? Like, I'm sure you've experienced it when you're with your children and you're like start to drift in your head about something business like.
Yes.
You're like, oh God, come back. It's like, so just try to like be as present as possible, but it's a work in progress, I'd say.
It is, yeah.
I don't know if you figured it out or not, but
I like the idea of the scheduling of time because I'm that way here at work. Like, I have to put it on the calendar or it's not going to happen. And to carry that over, like, it sounds almost weird to do it in the home environment, but if that's truly what I prioritize, like, that's the way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. All right. So
yeah, there's some saying that says like, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities.
Oh,
or something like that.
I'm writing that down right now.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
All right. So this podcast is sponsored by and brought to you by Notch Modern Kitchen. They are awesome. I love them. They make these specialty cocktails where you tell them what kind of mood you're in and what kind of alcohol you like, and they put it together, and it was great. We went there for Mother's Day. Anyway, I bring that up because we also like to kick it up a notch with our guests. And so Matt Strunk has just sold another successful business, and he's sitting down to enjoy it and celebrate. What drink is he reaching for? What's he grabbing to celebrate this?
Oh, man, that is a good question. It depends on the where am I? Who am I with?
Yeah.
Because if I'm with my buddies, it's probably a beer. It's probably like an IPA of some sort, and just chilling with a beer. Yep. I think. But if I'm like trying to pretend like I'm fancier, then it might be some scotch.
Okay.
Like
Beer has been the go-to answer. Like I expected, like I lead this off with a cocktail and talking about cocktails. And so I expect people to naturally go there, but I would say beer hands down has been the number one answer.
Yeah. Yep. Just the easy, grab a beer, crack it open, and cheers.
Cheers. Well, on that note, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I am a smarter business person now, so I really appreciate the time and the learnings that you gave us here.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate you having me on. It was a pleasure, and always great to connect with you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the YMI Talking podcast. If you enjoyed this and want to hear more content from amazing personalities in the Valley, please subscribe, leave a rating, and drop us a quick review.